So in today's web dev tip, we're going to take a look at the JavaScript reduce method, which you can call on any array to reduce it down to a single value. So imagine we've got an array and it's just got a list of numbers in there, and you want to get the total value that's stored in the array by adding up each of the numbers. So traditionally what you would do is you would set up a variable to hold a running total and then loop through each of the items and add them in turn. But we can achieve this much more effectively using the reduce method. So let's take a look at how we would do that in this example. So we'd call the reduce function on the array. And this is different to some of the other JavaScript array methods that are available in that we do pass a function into it, so we can pass a simple arrow function like this. But the arguments that get passed into that callback function actually starts with what we call an accumulator variable, and that's what would hold the running total if you were doing this using a traditional for loop. And then the second argument available is the item in the array, so this is going to get called for each item, so that'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in turn. So we need to return something from our callback function. So for example, if we were to return just a simple value such as 0, then the single value that the array gets reduced to will just be whatever's returned here. And what we would be trying to do is to add these numbers together. So you might think, well, we'll return the item at each iteration, at each time this function's called. But you can see what that does is it actually just returns the last value in the array, because each time this function gets called, it will return 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it will only be the last value that is actually given back. So what we need to do to get our running total is to access the accumulator variable and then just add to it each time the item in turn from the array, and then just return that accumulator variable from the reduce function each time the callback function is called. And of course we could shorten this a little bit as well and just say return the accumulator value plus the item value. So one thing that you'll probably want to do when using the reduce function is to actually initialize the single value that's going to be returned. So for example, in our case, we might set the accumulator value here to 0. So whatever we put as the second argument to the reduce function after the callback function will be used to initialize the accumulator variable up there. So for example, if we pass in an empty string, instead of doing numerical addition, JavaScript will do string concatenation and add all of the values together as if they were strings. So that's quite important if you want to initialize the accumulator variable with a specific data type or value. And also, as with other JavaScript array methods, you also do have access in the callback function here to the index value, so this will just start at 0 going up to 5 for this array, and also you've got access to the array itself, so if you do need to reference it within the reduce function, you've got that available to you in the callback. So there you go, that's just a quick overview of the reduce function in JavaScript. Make sure you stay tuned for more web dev tips.